reality? Are you living it?
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Our reality. The show that will stretch your consciousness and awaken you to a world of unlimited possibilities. It's time to change the world. It's time for an awakening. It's time for Our Reality. Hosted by your emissary to planet Earth, Violeta.
Hello and welcome everyone to our show, and today I am very excited because we have a very special guest with us today, and our special guest is Mr. Jordan Maxwell. Hi Jordan.
Hello there, dear.
Hi my dear, so happy to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to this day for a very, very long time.
Well, thank you.
Yes, I've listened to your work since I was probably 20 years old, so for the past 18 years, and I know how much you have done even before I knew about you. You've been in it for a very long time. I'm going to read a little bit about you, your biography, so our listeners can get more familiarized with you. So Jordan Maxwell continues as a preeminent researcher and independent scholar in the field of occult religious philosophy. His interest in these subjects began as far back as 1959. He served for 3.5 years as the religion editor of Truth Seeker magazine, America's oldest Freethought Journal since 1873. His work exploring the hidden foundations of Western religions and secret societies creates enthusiastic responses from audiences around the world. There's hundreds of YouTube videos that a person can watch, and you have such a depth of knowledge. He has conducted dozens of intensive seminars, hosted his own radio talk shows, currently hosts his own talk show. He was a guest on more than 600 radio shows and written, produced, and appeared in numerous television shows and documentaries, including CBS TV network, as well as internationally acclaimed 5-part Ancient Mystery series. His work on the subject of secret societies, both ancient and modern, and their symbols has fascinated audience around the world for decades. And considering the rapidly moving events of today and the very real part hidden religious agendas play in our modern war-torn world, he feels these controversial subjects are not only interesting to explore, but too important to ignore. His extraordinary presentations include documents and photographs seldom seen elsewhere. Jordan's areas of interest include astrotheology, sexual symbolism in world religions, foundations of modern-day religion, secret societies and toxic religion, world mysteries, ancient and modern, ancient symbols and occult emblems, ancient sciences and technology, hidden Bible teachings and mysteries, the sun in the history of politics and religion, the story your church does not want you to know, secret societies and their influence on world events. So Jordan, this is a lot. I know you spent all your life, for over 50 years, researching, and you're a true expert on a lot of these topics. So what I want to start with and ask you is, I agree, it is true that there is religion and then there is toxic religion. And what is going on? What do you think about what is going on currently in the world with the wars and the religious wars and the way we are being presented the image of God? There seems to be a discrepancy between the ruling class of the world and who God truly is. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think that the problem can all be boiled down to one thing: ignorance. People who are ill-informed, unread, and who have not bothered to examine the world in which we live and understand where we've come from as a nation and as a people and as a world of mankind. Where have we come from? Where did we start? How far back is the history of the human race? And who are we? Where did we come from? And why are we here? So many people just do not care about such things, and therefore We are today ignorant, ill-informed, unread, and have no idea in the world of what's going on in the world you live in. And I have said it so many times, I'll say it again, that the world does not work the way you think it does. Nothing works the way you think it does. Nothing. Banks don't do what you think they do. Police departments don't do what you think they do. Governments are not installed to do what you believe they do. Nothing works the way you think it does. And only until you begin to see how this world has been put together and how it actually, in point of fact, works, not the way you thought it worked, then you begin to see how much you have not been told and how ignorant and ill-informed you really are, and that would explain why we are in so much trouble, why people have so many problems in their marriage and their business and their social connections with the rest of the world. Our courts are filled with angry people, and courts and laws and jails and prisons. And consequently, so many young people can't handle the world that they're living in because they don't understand it. They don't know how to deal with it. So they end up on drugs and alcoholism and all the other problems that are developed because of our ignorance. And so I think that's the bottom line, is the importance of how much we don't know and how ignorant we really are. And so we turn to religions and government and to other people, never realizing that the truth is inside of each one of us. We already know something is very badly wrong. Something's wrong, and we know that, but we don't know how to deal with it. And the reason why is because we're not prepared to deal with it. We just don't have the ability to do anything about the problems we are living with. Why? Because knowledge is power. And the scripture says that the people are dying, my people are dying from a lack of knowledge. And there's another scripture that's very important that basically says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And that is exactly what we're living with today, where there is no vision. The people are dying. People are dying to know what's going on. And because they don't know what's happening, they don't know how to deal with the world they live in, they're dying. So that's what the scripture says, where there is no vision, the people perish. That's the problem. We have no vision. We don't know how to view the world we live in. We have no basis for deciding anything. And this is why our young people are on drugs, are into criminality. It's just a very sad situation that the human family finds itself in. And I've always felt what I do, I've been doing it for 60 years, since 1959. And I'm trying to wake people up to the idea that there's a whole world of knowledge that you have not been privy to know. And this is why we are in the condition we're in today, because most people don't want to know. Very few people really care about the world they live in. They just flip their cigarettes out and eat as long as their bellies are full, and the basketballs, and sports are on the air, and everybody's happy with what's going on. Nobody questions anything. But me, I started questioning when I was like 5 and 6 years old. And I realized that when I asked questions of adults at that age, when I would ask questions of adults, I realized the adults had no idea in the world what they were talking about. Everybody had a different opinion. Everybody had a different view on simple questions, which tells me when everybody thinks alike, nobody's thinking at all. And so that's where we are today. The entire adult world is lost. We have no basis for understanding the world we live in. We don't know how the world works. And that's why we're all on drugs and war and violence against each other, because civilization itself is tearing itself apart, because where there is no vision, the people perish. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just wake people up to learn, to understand the world you live in is not what you think it is. You
Absolutely.
need to educate yourself as to how the world works. It's
Absolutely.
a terrible scene.
It is a terrible scene. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And me myself and everybody around me, it seems like we're trying to catch breath and dig deeper and see what's going on. And then the minute you kind of catch a glimpse, you're again back in the machine, earn money, pay bills, like you said, watch sports or worry about trivial things that don't matter, that
You're
absolutely
right.
do not matter. Yeah. And I want to get your opinion, or because you have really, I mean, I've listened to so many YouTube lectures, and I mean, you go into law, you go into deep things, symbolism. Where do we come from? What is this? Who installed this?
Wow, what a question. I know. Where
Mm,
did we come from and who are we really? And what are we doing here and where we're going?
mm-hmm,
And that's a very interesting question. And I kind of like the answer that the Bible gives as to where we came from. I believe that there is something to the Genesis account of creation, but I am also well aware of the fact that the actual the actual story in the book of Genesis in the Bible has never been told correctly to the people of this world. Even to Jews, do not understand what the scriptures are actually saying. People, generally speaking, are in a religious belief system that has nothing to do with the reality of the world they live in. And so they have been misled purposely to go down the garden lane, purposely being misled to support mankind's corporations and business, and point of fact, having no idea in the world the spiritual implications of the world they live in and what's actually being said in the ancient writings and all the ancient spiritual writings. There's a story in the New Testament in the book of Genesis, the first chapter, which has never been told. And people who go to church and Jews who go to synagogue have never ever seen this story. This is why the Bible has Jesus saying, "You look with your eyes, but you do not see. You listen with your ears, but you do not hear. And with your heart, you do not get the sense of it." So what I'm saying is that there's a story in the book of Genesis about who we are as humans and how we got here that's never been told in public. It's never been told in churches. Churches have no knowledge of it. And it's so overwhelming and obvious to myself. It's just incredibly how well informed the story is, and yet today people don't see it. They don't have any idea in the world what the Bible is actually saying. So
mm-hmm.
that's a place to start if you really want to know who we are and where we've come from. You need to go back to Genesis 1 and 2, and you will begin to see a story there that you've been told over and over again, but you've never actually done any research on it yourself. And then you begin to see what the real story actually is. And it has to do, and I'll give you the basic story. I don't care if you understand it or believe it. I'll just tell you what the
Okay.
basic story is.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah. The basic story in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, about how we humans came to be, is that there are extraterrestrials who came here from another world out there in space a long time ago. And they encountered upon this earth creatures that we today scientifically call hominids.
Mm-hmm.
Not humans, hominids. Hominids were already here, and that doesn't answer the question, how did the hominids get here? But I'm talking about how did we humans today, how did we get here? Somebody came here from out there a long time ago, and encountered on this earth certain creatures that are referred to as hominids. And they took us and reproduced us and intervened in our natural evolution. And they intervened by procreating with the hominids their own genetics, and they recreated a creature from the ancient hominids that became the normal today human beings. That's where we came from. Somebody from out there in space came here, I would think probably millions of years ago, and encountered life forms that were here, and then procreated with those life forms, and I ultimately created us. We are the offspring of the gods, so to speak. And so that's and we could talk about that, and I could explain it to you, but it's going to take
Please,
some
yeah.
time.
It's okay. I'm really interested because, I mean, growing up, I've also studied a lot of religion, and I always, had a feeling, yes, there is a God, a universal source. But
Yeah.
then I remember reading the Vedas and studying in Hindu temples, and it talks about 8.4 million species of life on different planets that this God force or this source created. But then again, I think this would really, really fit in well with what you're saying about Genesis, that there is definitely creatures that are farther evolved that kind of took control over this earth and subsequently over us. I would love to hear everything you have to say.
Well, if you start with Genesis 1:1, it says in English, the English translation we call the King James Version, Genesis 1:1 is not translated correctly. It says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, in the language we call Hebrew, which is actually a Phoenician language, but Hebrews speak it. That's a very important point. There is no Hebrew language as such. There is a Phoenician language, which gives us our word phonics and phony. And so the Phoenician language, the Hebrews speak it. So we call it Hebrew. It's not Hebrew, it's Phonetic. It's a Phoenician language. But in the ancient Phoenician, or what we call Hebrew, the Bible is translated in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, in Hebrew, the word God is El, E-L. Very simple. El. El is God. So if you go back to the Hebrew and read it in Hebrew, you would expect the Bible to say, in the beginning, El created the heavens and the earth, because El is God. But that's not what it says. It doesn't say El created the heavens and the earth. Go back and read it in Hebrew. It says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is a plural, just as the apostrophe S is a plural in English. You may have a car, C-A-R, but if you have a C-A-R apostrophe S, is cars, more than one, a plurality. And so the correct way to understand Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, the Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is God in the plural, more than one. So a correct translation would be, in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth, not God. And so then Genesis 1:2 is also a horrible mistranslation in the English. It says, and the earth was without form and void. Logic would dictate you asking the question, what are you talking about? The earth was without form and void. I mean, if God has created something and he says it is good, he created something, and now you find out that what God has created has no form and it's void. What are you talking about? God created the earth and it was without form and void. I mean, your thinking is without form and void.
Right.
if you don't understand
Problem.
what's being said. So what is, when you take the word without form and void in Hebrew, is tohu va vohu. Tohu va vohu is mistranslated without form and void. But if you go back to the Jewish encyclopedias and look up tohu va vohu, it doesn't say without form and void. Go back to the scriptures and read it correctly. It's tohu vavohu means not without form and void. It means became a waste and a desolation. So the Bible is saying that the gods created the heavens and the earth became a waste and a desolation. Not was without form and void. No, became. And so tohu vavohu is used twice in the Old Testament Bible. The second place that is used, tohu vavohu, is in the book of Jeremiah. I think it's the 4th chapter of Jeremiah, where the scripture says, Jeremiah says, I was laying on my bed and God gave me a vision. And the vision that God gave me was of the world and the earth, and of the earth in the ancient world. And God let me see that there was a beautiful earth. It was a paradise earth. And there were great and beautiful cities. And there were animals, all kinds of animals and beautiful cities. And it was a meeting place of the Elohim. It was a meeting place of the gods. And then it goes on to say in Jeremiah, but there was no man. No humans were there, period. So there was no man in the ancient world, but there were beautiful cities and beautiful animals. Well, if there was no man, then who built the beautiful cities? Well, it says, and the earth was the home of, it doesn't say exactly what they were, but the home of the gods, the home of the Elohim. And so the idea being is that there was an ancient world, and then it goes on to say in Jeremiah, and then I saw, after seeing the beautiful paradise earth and the Elohim and the gods and all the beautiful animals and the beautiful cities, then it goes on to say, and then God showed me tohu vavohu. Then God showed me that the earth became a waste and a desolation. So now the idea being is that a long time ago in man's history, we're talking millions and millions of years ago, the earth was a paradise. And then something happened where the earth became a waste and a desolation, implying that there must have been some kind of an otherworldly war or some kind of a natural disaster that just shook up and destroyed the whole situation we call life on the earth. And we now talk about, every day we're talking about the great flood. And we read in the Bible about the flood of Noah's day. And so there's a whole story of basically saying that there was a large group of entities here on the earth who have built great cities. And those great cities were ultimately destroyed.
Wow. Definitely, Jordan. We're going to be taking a short break and more with Jordan Maxwell, as well as your questions and comments in just a bit. This is Violeta Vrankovic, and you're listening to Our Reality.
And now, your emissary to planet Earth, the host of Our Reality, Violeta Vrankovic.
Welcome back to Our Reality. I am Violeta Vrankovic, and we're talking with Jordan Maxwell. Feel free to join the conversation anytime by connecting with me on chat, Twitter, or even calling into the show at 702-425-9230. Now, folks, we're discussing something very, very important, and I know it's important to Mr. Maxwell and me as well to educate the public as much as possible, or at least share what we know and what he knows in order to wake us all up and try to end this suffering on planet Earth by inducing knowledge into our consciousness. Now, right before the break, we were talking about Genesis and how Genesis is not only poorly translated and therefore misunderstood, but we're talking about creator gods that came here and merged with the hominoids and created us basically, and then they were shown something happened and the earth became a wasteland. But what we really want to discuss, because we only have about 24 minutes left, is what happened, who is currently in charge, because the way the laws are being ran, the state is being ran, it seems all to fit a pattern, and it seems all to be a grand plan of someone. And who is that someone, and who are we to them?
Yes, well, many years ago, back in 1960, so almost 60 years ago, I talked with a very famous rabbi in America. He was a very highly placed rabbi in the rabbinical system in America. And he and I became very close friends, and I used to talk with him often on the phone. And I asked him one time, I said, in Genesis, the 6th chapter, I think it's the 6th chapter or the 9th chapter, I can't remember. But off the top of my head, I'm remembering the conversation. And I said, in the 6th or the 9th chapter, it's talking about the flood of Noah's day, the Noahian flood, and the ark during the flood. And I said that the scripture says that when the rains finally stopped, and the ark finally came to rest on land, that Noah told his 3 sons and their 3 wives and his wife, there were only 8 people who lived through the flood. That's very important to keep that in mind. There 8 people who lived through the flood, Noah and his wife and the 3 sons and their 3 wives. And Noah was told by God. God said to Noah and his family, go forth and multiply and replenish the earth. Now that the flood is over, go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. And so I asked the rabbi, I said, is that a correct translation into English? Yes, and absolutely correct. I said, yes. And so I said, well, the scripture says, go forth. God says to Noah, go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. Means do it again. Is that correct? Yes. And the rabbi said, obviously, if there was life on this earth and God wanted to destroy it because it has become so corrupt, but if God wanted life on this earth to start with, then you would have to recreate life because he's destroyed it all. So if you're going to be on the earth and you're going to be alive, then go back and replenish the earth. To go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. Do it again. And I said, well, my question is, because in Genesis 1:28, when God is creating Adam and Eve, he says to Adam and Eve, the first couple on the earth were told, go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. Why would God tell Adam and Eve to replenish the earth? Do it again. And he said, well, that is because Adam and Eve were not the first human couple. Humans have been on this earth for countless millions of years. Millions and millions of years have been all kinds of humans and all kinds of life forms on this earth. And that Adam and Eve is merely the story for us in our dispensation, according to our time in which we're living, to explain life to us in our dispensation when we're living today. But the scriptures indicate that God told Adam and Eve to replenish the earth. And this is why when Cain kills his brother Abel, that when God finds out that Cain has killed his brother, He's going to be put out of the paradise. He's going to be put out because he's a murderer. And Cain says to God, don't put me out there because they're going to find me. And when they find me, they will kill me. So Cain is implying that there are other people on the earth that are not like him and his father and the rest of the creation of God. Cain says, don't put me out there because they will find me and they will kill me. Now he has God believing there's somebody else out there, and God says, no, I won't let them kill you. When they find you, I won't let them kill you. Who is God talking about? Them who are out there, and they're going to kill me if they find me. It's because the creation of Adam and Eve was a experiment by somebody who came here, the Els, the extraterrestrial Els, E-L, or Elohim, the gods. Whoever they are, they've come here a long time ago. They saw the hominid creatures, and they took those hominid creatures, one of the females and one of the males, and they put them into a protected area because they were going to experiment on her and him, because they wanted to know who were these creatures. They're called hominids. And so these extraterrestrials who came here saw these creatures, and they took the one female and one male and put them into a protected area where they were going to do some experimenting on them. And then the extraterrestrials began crossbreeding with the female, putting within her their DNA, so that now she would give birth to something which is half hominid and half extraterrestrial. And therefore,
and that would be us.
That's us. And that's why today we, the Apostle Paul says, we have a war inside of us. The Apostle Paul said in the scriptures that mankind today is at war with himself, inside of himself. And this is exactly the situation men find themselves in. They are at war inside of themselves. Why? Because one half of modern day man is an animal. We think like an animal, we eat like animals, we live like an animal, and we're animalistic. We're very territorial, we fight, we have wars, we're violent, we turn on our own kind. So we are, half of us, or the half of mankind is animalistic, while the other half is the extraterrestrial half, is able to create beautiful music, television, entertainments of all kinds around the world, rockets, lasers, all sorts of extraordinary, brilliant stuff that we are able to comprehend and to invent and create. Why? Because there's half of us is from the gods. That's why we love to go out at night and look into the stars. And we have these ideas about the extraterrestrials who have come here from other worlds. Why? Is because it's in our DNA. It's in our blood. We know that we have come from the stars. That's how we got here. Somebody came here from out there a long time ago and recreated us and created a whole new kind of creature. And that new kind of creature was called Adam, A-D-M. So in the Hebrew, the Hebrew word for man or men is ish, I-S-H. Ask any Jew that knows their language, they will tell you that the word I-S-H is a man or men, can be singular or plural. Therefore, Ish is a man, but it doesn't say that God created Ish. It says God created Adam. Look at the word in the Hebrew as not A-D-A-M, A-D-M, Adam. Adam, and we add the A and make it Adam. No, it's not Adam, it's Adam. Go back and read it in Hebrew. So God said he has created Adam and Eve. Adam the word simply means a different kind of creature. So therefore, the extraterrestrials who came here from out there in space, somewhere out there millions of years ago, and encountered the creatures on the earth that we call Neanderthals, and they procreated with one of the females. One of the females they picked and put her into what they call the Garden of Eden, some sort of a protected area where all the other animals couldn't bother her, and they were protecting her from all the other hominids. And then they procreated with her and put in her their DNA from the extraterrestrial. And that's why today half of us are holy. We are able to think and read and understand and design beautiful things, music. We think in terms of space and the stars, and we can appreciate all the high technology that we are able to produce. Why? Because that part of us is the extraterrestrial part. And we feel and talk about God. And when we talk about God, what are you talking about? Well, ask an 8-year-old child, where is God? And they will point out to the stars. But if he's in China and you ask him, he points out to the stars. That's in a different area of the universe. But the point is, all humans, when you talk about God, point out to the stars. And so God is out there. Somewhere he's out there. And so, of course, somewhere he's out there, meaning the extraterrestrials who actually recreated us and recreated and said, come, let us make man in our image. God says, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So the extraterrestrials who came here saw the indigenous creatures we call hominids, and they said to themselves, come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Because for being a man, being like Ish, he's not that handsome, he's not that pretty. So let's make him look like us and be like us. Come, let us make man in our image. Well, that's what they did when they put in the female their DNA. They were going to make her pregnant so she would give birth to a creature that would be more like her and the extraterrestrials too. So they created another creature, but it had godly qualities. And that's who we are today. We are a recreation of an extraterrestrial race on this earth that the Native Americans refer to as our star brothers, our heavenly brothers. The Christianity and religions of the world talk about the angels, the gods who have come here from another world, who created us. It's a very interesting story that's been hidden.
I agree. It's indeed so interesting, very interesting. And, I have one question. So when we talk about gods, plural, and then we talk about God, singular, and one distinction that I want to explore is in my own studies, what I, in my heart, always understood to be God is the source that created all universes, all the worlds, all the dimensions, including these alien that we call gods, plural, because they're a little higher advanced than us, and therefore we assign them the attribute of God, but they might be just a more evolved species. And just like we're more evolved than ants, and then, differently evolved than the trees, in my own experience with different extraterrestrials and from different planets that I had visitations with since I was a little girl, I understood that they definitely have different abilities. A lot of times, like you said, Jordan, a lot stronger than ours, and that they could have definitely played a part in our creation. And then people get confused a lot of times when they hear, the term gods. There was Zeus, there was Aphrodite, and then we're talking about alien gods. But wouldn't you agree, or what do you think? Isn't there one source of us all, including the extraterrestrials, including all the worlds, that's above that all?
I am totally convinced for myself, after some 60 years of looking at this subject of who we are and how we got here, I am totally convinced that there is one all-encompassing divine presence in the universe that men have called God. But in the English, God is simply dog spelled backwards. And so I
Mm-hmm.
understand the idea behind the word God, and I know what people are thinking when they say God. But I remember being taught when I was a child to always, when you're talking to people, define your terms. When you're talking to people, define what you're talking about so they can understand what you mean. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about God, it may be not the same thing I'm thinking about God. Or if I'm using the word love, it may not be in the audience. The audience may be thinking all kinds of ideas about love. And
Oh.
so you need to define your terms when you're talking about something so at least the audience can understand what you're talking about. Maybe they don't agree, maybe they don't understand it, but at least now they understand what you're talking about.
Very true.
And
I
so
couldn't agree more. Yeah.
you have to
You.
define your terms. And so I want to define what I believe as God. I am totally convinced that there is one source of creation, one source only. And that is what I would refer to as the Almighty God. That I don't understand. I have no idea in the world how to understand that divine presence. I just know that it's there. And how do I know that it's there? Because I am continually seeing evidence for some kind of a divine intelligence behind all things. So I know somebody has to have put together the world I live in. So I don't have any
Mm-hmm.
problem with God. What my problem has always been is with organized religion.
Yep.
Mankind's religions are nothing more than corporations. Most people do not realize that governments, all the governments of the world, are in fact corporations. All churches, synagogues, and mosques, and all the holy places where people go to worship, all those places, churches, synagogues, and mosques, etc., and temples are corporations. They're companies. They're on the stock market. And people don't realize that. Churches are on the stock market. That's why today our money, we divide our money into denominations. That's what you say about the churches. They are in denominations.
Mm-hmm.
Denominations is what the churches are divided into, the same way your money is. It's because the churches are corporations, they're companies, and they're simply a business on the stock exchanges of the world. And so I have a big problem with man-made corporations and business because corporations and business are rely on human bodies to exist. They rely on you. And so the way our government in America has been set up a long time ago, back in the 1870s, is that after the Civil War in this country was over, there was no longer a United States of America. It was no longer a viable operation. We were the United States of America up to the beginning of the Civil War. But after the Civil War, the United States of America was done away with forever. Why? Because we were a lot of things in this country, but united was not one of them. We just got through killing each other for so many years, a bloodiest battle of killing each other, and it was called the American Civil War. So we are no longer a united states. We were disunited. And so it was decided that since there's so many people still alive and they're having babies and they need to eat and they want to work and they need to progress in life, well, if you don't have a United States of America, what are you going to do with all the people and want to eat and want to live and they're already here and you can't kill them and send them anywhere else. They're here for good. So what are you going to do? How are you going to take care of the people after the Civil War? Well, it was decided instead of having United States of America, they would have a corporation. They would form a privately owned company. It's called a corporation. And so they formed a corporation called the United States Incorporated. And it's a privately owned company. So today, if you're in the military and you're going into service to serve America, no, you're serving a corporation like General Motors, General Electric, Exxon Oil, and all the other corporations around the world. The United States is a company, is a corporation. It has nothing to do with the original Washington. It has nothing to do with the original United States of America. This is why today you do not have any freedoms. You have no freedom, liberty, or justice. There is no particular code of conduct for the United States of America, because we're not the United States of America. We're the United States Corporation. And corporations cannot make law. This is very important to understand. Corporation, which the United States is now, is a privately owned company. And corporations cannot make a law. You cannot make a law. Ford Motor Company cannot make a law that applies to all Americans. Everybody must follow this law strictly because Ford Motor Company said so. No, Ford Motor Company is not authorized to make law. But if you're working for the corporation, they can make a policy. They can make a policy, and their policy is you have to be to work at 7 in the morning. Their policy is you can take a half hour off for lunch, and you can go to the bathroom, and you can do this, and you can do that, and you get a break for coffee. But that's their policy. They're not laws chiseled in stone. No, it's just their personal corporate policy. And so today we have people we call lawmakers. No, they're not lawmakers. Go back and listen to how they are addressed on television and radio. The politicians are referred to as policy makers. So they're making the policy for the corporation, not a law. There is no law. The United States Corporation cannot make a law. They can only make a policy.
Gotcha.
And so how did
this is so important.
Yeah, well, the point I'm making is that suppose they make a policy and you don't want to follow that policy, and you've got a gun and you carry guns on you. You've got the ability to carry guns and own the gun, and you say, I don't want to follow your policy. I have my own policy, and it's a 45 I carry.
Got you.
That's
Jordan, I hate to interrupt you, and we will definitely hope to have you back on the show. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank you for definitely putting the effort in, and we're trying to dig deeper into the reality, and I hope we can have you back, Jordan.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's continue this another week. I want to thank Jordan Maxwell for joining me this week. Be sure to check out his book and websites. Also tune in next week for David Icke as my special guest. Until then, everyone stay safe, stay strong, and remember, this is our reality. Until next week, bye everyone.
You've been listening to Our Reality, hosted by Violeta Frankovic. Live every Saturday from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the host as well as the show, as well as upcoming guests, please check out our reality show page at kcorradio.com.
Our reality.
From the ordinary to the extraordinary, we've got you covered. Our reality, changing the world, one topic at a time.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.